All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Waveform podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Marques.
And I'm Andrew.
And today we've got I'm going to call this a special episode.
Yeah.
Even though it's pretty similar to our previous ones, it's a special episode because we did this crazy, spontaneous project and we finally get to reveal what we were doing, why we were doing it, and how it went. This is the most casual version of where you'll see it, but we're working on videos that may or may not be out soon by the time you see this podcast.
Yeah.
But this is the project that we did. So you've heard us talk all the time about electric cars on this channel. We've had people on talking about Electrify America. We've had people on. We've talked about Tesla in the past. We just had Doug DeMuro on recently talking about cars. Clearly, there's a lot of car talk on this channel. And one of the things that I've constantly heard in all this car talk is the difference between a road trip in a gas car and an electric car.
Yeah.
Just a fascinating question. Like, what kind of time does it add to your trip? What kind of experience changing does that do? Is there more range anxiety? There's just a different feeling doing a trip in a gas car like you're used to versus an electric car. A lot more planning needed. So we decided to actually do such a trip.
Yeah.
And we made a little bit of an experiment about it. It's semi-scientific, but here's basically how it went: is we did a 1,000-mile loop, roughly, and we used 3 different cars that all started at the exact same time. We had the Tesla Model S Plaid. We'll go over all the details in a second, but that's the roughly highest range available Tesla using Tesla superchargers. We went with the Ford Mustang Mach-E California Route 1 Edition, which is, from what I understand and from what our research showed, the highest range non-Tesla EV.
Yeah.
And so that would be using its own set of chargers.
It's also just one of the best-selling EVs that are not Tesla right now. Yeah.
It's hotcakes right now. And we had a gas car as a control. Kind of wanted to use just like some sort of a full-size, popular, normal car to go on a road trip in. We ended up renting a car, and that car was the Audi Q5.
Yeah.
So sort of a, I don't know, would you say crossover,
it's
mid-size?
Super comparable to the Mach-E in terms of price and size. It's definitely a little higher because it's, a little more expensive. Audi's a little more expensive, but it was just wound up. We thought it was a perfect comparison to the
pretty similar in price
Mach-E,
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that something like 25 to 30 miles per gallon, something like that. And the way we did it was we divided up the entire studio into 3 teams, and we had these teams all, I'm using air quotes, race. Starting from point A, doing a loop around points B, C, D, and E, and ending up back on point A. So we drew this 1,000-mile loop around New York and Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and that's how we did it. So the teams were myself and Hayato in the Tesla. We had your car, Team Gasolina.
Gasolina.
What was your team?
I had Adam and I had Tim.
So it was a 3-person car. And then we have representing the gas car, we'll pop in. Representing the Mustang Mach-E, we had Brandon and David. So let's bring in David. David, welcome. Welcome to the Waveform podcast. We're glad to have you back.
Thank goodness.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you made it. Wow, we have a lot to talk about because there were quite a variety of experiences, and I feel like if we were guessing at the beginning what was going to happen, and we kind of were at this point. It's kind of like when we do the blind smartphone camera test. We're kind of like guessing behind the scenes as we set up the brackets what might happen. I would have guessed that the gas car would come in first because there are gas stations everywhere, and that the Tesla would come in second because there are a lot of Tesla superchargers, but it's just not as many as gas, and it takes longer to charge. And that the Mustang Mach-E would come in shortly after that because there are even less Electrify America high-powered stations, especially in certain parts of the country. And that would have been sort of the end of my boring prediction.
Yeah. Can I also just add something quickly to how... So I made the loop, why I kind of made it how we did.
Yeah.
So the first thing we wanted to do is make sure we all hit 1,000 miles, which was just like a number we picked out that's just easy to extrapolate data from. And then in order to force that, I had to pick a bunch of specific points. We made them fun just because we still have to drive for 2 straight days and we want to be a little entertained.
Yeah.
But we didn't want any shortcuts to happen. We didn't want people like finding some certain ways to cheat the system. So this guaranteed everyone hit 1,000 miles. I'm pretty sure everyone definitely hit the 1,000. I think we were 1,025 was right around where we ended.
It was a little bit different for every car, which we'll get into, but it was a little over 1,000.
Yeah, okay.
It was a little,
yeah.
Well, definitely
pretty over 1,000. Pretty over 1,000 for me. But.
Yeah.
But so what I did was I wanted to force that 1,000 miles, but I also wanted to have all the places as places that are either frequently traveled to or frequently visited. So we started going to Lake Placid. Also, we're starting in New Jersey, so it has to be somewhere near us.
Our starting point, super, super useful. One Wawa, so food stop, that happens to have a gas station, a Tesla supercharger, and an Electrify America charger right there, basically in that parking lot. So that was perfect.
All pretty much top off, and then
started 100% for everybody.
So we went to Lake Placid, then we went to Niagara Falls, then we went to Cornell University in Ithaca, down to Scranton, and then back across to work. It was a little over 1,000 miles. It is also in a fairly remote area as well, though. But for us, it is still a place where people we would travel to. People go to Niagara Falls from here all the time. People go to Lake Placid. It was a past Olympic site. It's all pretty obvious driving.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't going to be an easy trip by any means.
Yeah.
I mean, for a gas car, you have no worries about it. But for the rest of it, we weren't really sure. And we did make a rule where you were not allowed to pre-plan charging or gas stops or pit stops or whatever beforehand. You weren't allowed to till you got into the car. We wanted to make it most people don't
as
do a
authentic
whole
as
ton
possible.
of planning like that. Yeah. You were going to get in the car and you were just going to see where the car told you what to do, pretty much.
Yeah.
So let's do a quick 2-3 minute recap of each car's experience, just to set the stage for what actually went down, right? So I think gas car should probably start because that's what everyone's familiar with.
Yeah, we were the control, so I guess that's what everyone should be familiar. I mean, it went smooth. We definitely had all of the advantages on our side. We had as many stops as we wanted to because almost even out there in the middle of the Adirondacks, we could get a gas station pretty much wherever we wanted. We could stop for food when we wanted. It wasn't taking up a whole lot of time. We had 3 drivers, although I wound up doing most of it. I was just on a roll. Tim was creating a thumbnail. Adam was our best cameraman. So it just kind of, we settled into roles and went that way. But we cruised. That was pretty much it.
No surprises. You ended up...
No surprises. Lots of trivia.
We did split it up into 2 days just for clarity. So we did...
Safety's sake, much.
Day 1 was start at the studio, head up to Lake Placid, then head over to Niagara Falls, pause, leave your current state of charge, or in your case, state of fuel. And then day 2, wake up in Niagara Falls, finish the rest of the loop from there, and we'd keep the time delta from each car.
Yeah.
The Tesla, I want to ask, was there any sort of autopilot cruise control that you were taking advantage of?
There was a lane assist and cruise control, nothing that was attempting to be full self-driving by any means. It was more of just hey, I'm helping you stay in the lane. I'm keeping up with the car in front of you. You can set travel distance. It was coming from an older car with 180,000 miles on it. It's nice to just be in a newer car, but it wasn't anything I was assuming both of the Mach-e or the Tesla would have. It's not like anything we've talked about. I enjoyed it. It definitely made driving a little easier, but
that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go for the Tesla car. I've done a lot of road trips in the Tesla before, so I was very familiar. And even without any pre-planning, you get in the car and you're able to plan pretty easily on the map on the touchscreen in the car. So we didn't have any sort of issues. I'm looking at my charging stops here, which I've written all of them down. We had 6 total charging stops, 3 on each day.
Okay.
None of them were over 46 minutes. And they were all pretty fast. Typically we would get, 60 to 80% battery pretty quickly. Our most dramatic experience was the first one, where we went directly from the studio all the way up to the top of the mountain in Lake Placid, where I arrived with 0.3% battery left, which is 1 mile left on the car. Yeah. So I was chilling. I was definitely going very slow up that hill to make sure that worked out. But once we got there, that was our first stop, where we charged for half an hour and got to 275 miles. So I was definitely trusting the supercharger network with that one.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Other than that, Autopilot was great. I learned a lot about the limits of navigate on Autopilot. I still wish I had access to the full self-drive beta where it would take exits.
Have it on this.
I didn't have it, but it was great for highway stuff, which was nice. How was Mach-e?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you guys for beaming me in here because I was still stuck in Vermont, and so I'm gonna shave real quick. Oh, wow, that feels better. Okay.
Nice.
All right.
For those who are listening to audio,
Yeah, he had a mustache on.
David had a fake mustache
I think
on.
we
this
like
whole time.
we mixed up the two
What are you talking
intros we
about?
wanted to do and just put them together, and I realized we left the mustache.
Can't break the fourth wall, man. Okay, yeah. So, I think Brandon and I were in the mach-e. We got a little screwed over at the very first stop, and that kind of set the pace for the rest of the first day. And even though we were originally going for like kind of not like a race, but also just like it's sort of a race, but not trying to like drive fast, right? We capped out at 75 miles per hour on each car. But we had to pull off. Actually, I was very surprised by the mach-e. Something the mach-e does really well is like the range estimate is extremely accurate, and you actually get more range than it says you're going to get, which is not something Teslas do. And the Ford guy that came to hand off the Lightning to us told us that they do this on purpose because they would prefer to give customers lower expectations and then pleasantly surprise them. Yeah, that's something we definitely saw in the mach-e. Was we got more range than it said we were going to get, which was great. The problem was we got to the first charger with like 30 miles remaining on the car. And the chargers were all down. And I guess it was something weird where they were like switching over systems over the weekend and they hadn't finished switching them over or something. But the problem with that was in that area of Upper New York, there's nothing around there. There's that charger and that is it.
You needed that charger
We needed that charger to work.
Just to be clear real quick, that was an Evolve New York charger?
It was an Evolve New York charger, which is, I believe, run by the New York State. But I need to double check that. But they were kind of freaking out when we tweeted about it, and they were like, it's gonna be operational by 3 p.m. And like by that time though, Brandon and I had to drive to Vermont, which was literally the opposite direction than we needed to go, but it was the only one we could make it to. So we had to drive into Vermont. We finally made it to a charger there. There was one charger, and I don't know if you want to get into this now or if we want to get into this later as a broader discussion about the network.
Yeah.
Would you rather do that later?
I kind of like diving into like some of the more general points and like the findings from this because I didn't know what I would want to say after we do this trip. Like I figured we'd end up with this number at the end of like, okay, we did the trips, we did all 3 cars. Here's how much time it added to the trip in the Tesla. Here's how much time it added to the trip in the Mach-E.
Yeah.
And those were obviously still our findings, and it's something like an hour or 2 for the Tesla for 1,000 miles, and it's, depending on your experience, anywhere from 3 to 7 hours in the Mach-E, depending on if you have a remote area where there's nothing else and you got to go the wrong direction. You ended up not being able to even hit Lake Placid because you were on your way to another charger.
Yeah, we had to skip it.
But another thing I was interested in was what you were just mentioning, which is the accuracy of the range estimate in the car.
Yeah.
I've driven a lot of gas cars where you get a decent range estimate, but you're not really trusting it with your life because there's so many gas stations out there, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But the Tesla, when I drive any Tesla, it's pretty notoriously giving me a buffer, but the range estimate is perfect conditions.
Yeah.
And in perfect conditions, my car with the 21-inch wheels said it would get me about 345 miles. I have never gotten that, ever.
Yeah.
And I've never gotten perfect efficiency, which I think would probably be around 260 watt-hours per mile. I pretty constantly at highway speeds average over 300, typically 300 to 350. And in this car, we're just doing cruise control. Sometimes you're drafting behind a truck. Hills will affect it a little bit.
We did that near the end.
Yeah, it's very useful. Very useful, by the way.
Yeah.
But like, I'll set off to a charger, and if the charger is 30 miles away and the car says I have 40 miles to go, I'm actually thinking about it a lot more than you would think. Yeah. Because you think 10 miles, wow, you have a ton of buffer. As you're driving, that buffer also shrinks because it's not perfect efficiency. And I was really impressed. I think we were on a Twitter space or something, and you were talking about the range of the Mach-E, and it was definitely going down much slower despite our same speed.
We would go like 2 miles and it would only drop a mile. Like I think every trip between chargers, we would get like 20 to 25 more miles of range than it said we were going to get.
That is
And I think
dream.
that's what Ford should be doing. That's like what
I think that's awesome.
What these electric car manufacturers that like the number one concern for most consumers is the range anxiety of electric vehicles. And the best way to curb that is to like set expectations really low and then beat them. Yeah, that is something I was really surprised by. And I think it's a really good thing that Ford did that. When they dropped off the Lightning, they told us they do this, where like even in the Lightning, they assume the mileage range based on 1,000 miles in the bed.
Or 1,000 pounds,
1,000 pounds
of cargo, yeah.
Of cargo in the bed. And so like they want to underpromise and overdeliver, and that's what they definitely did with the Mach-E too. We gained like 20 to 25 miles, or like we got 20 to 25 miles more than it said we were going to get.
Yeah.
And I'd much prefer that to like a Tesla where you just like, it says you have the range. And like just to go from my apartment to here, it's 11 miles, but I burn like 20 to 22 miles getting here.
Exactly. So, and I noticed this with the Taycan. A lot of people have had the same experience. Like it gets way closer, even though it's saying, oh, we'll only do 225 miles. It'll get 220 miles, which is pretty impressive. The California Route 1 edition of the Mach-E, I think, is rated at 305 miles.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw that number on the dash.
No, I was very confused with that because like online it says 305, but we only ever got up to like 265 max.
Interesting.
But we have the Route 1 edition, so I don't know. That's
but
weird.
there's also there's a feature in the car that we saw on the dash where it was either going to estimate your range based on previous driving or not, and we left it on. So it's possible previous driving
Probably
knocked that estimate down.
It only had like 1,000 miles on it though, so it shouldn't
be too crazy.
Too crazy, yeah.
But yeah, so it was giving you 250-ish, and you got every ounce of that.
Yeah,
which is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
I think I remember. So we left the studio. The Tesla had 340 miles on it. The Mach-E had 240 miles on it. And during that same leg of the trip, I was down to 50 and you were down to 30.
Yeah.
It was like
we like
very,
almost
very
had
close.
to charge at the exact same time.
Yeah. So that was pretty impressive, and I wanted to note that.
Yeah.
The other thing is the accuracy of what's on the screen. So this was one of our points is we wanted to plan our road trip based on the info that the car or the app was giving us. And so that's what I did in the Tesla. With a gas car, you kind of just go on site because
we could have done whatever we wanted.
You didn't really have to plan too much.
Not at all.
So with the EVs, we're thinking a lot about planning, and the difference between the information and the accuracy of it that you get on the Tesla screen versus the Mach-E is probably the biggest story and learning from at least my experience. With the Tesla, it'll go, all right, here's all the superchargers on the map. You can filter by speed. You can filter by how far away from you they are. You click on one on the map, it'll tell you how much it will cost per minute to charge there if you don't have free charging. It'll tell you how many stalls there are, how many are occupied, how many are out of order, and how long you'll have to charge there to get to your next destination.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's and all of that information has been notoriously very accurate for me. And so I relied on it. I would literally go, okay, Lake Placid is a 250 kilowatt charger. There's 8 stalls. They're empty. I will get there with 1% left. Go.
Yeah.
And guess what? I got there with 1% left, and time to hit that charger.
Yeah.
And what we found in the Mach-E was, you can tell the story, but it's very different.
Yeah, it's very different. The Mach-E's UI is like good in some ways, but extremely confusing in a lot of other ways. And I think a broader problem with this whole thing is just the amount of charging companies that there are. There are like 19 different charging companies.
Right.
And Ford uses like all of them, and they have a filter for like Ford approved, which didn't really change anything when we turned it on, because I assume that they just want to say their network is as big as possible, right?
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, so it didn't really change anything when we turned on Ford approved. We did find there is a setting for like prefer fast charging.
Okay.
Finally. But we kind of went into this, like, just so everybody knows, like, I got so many comments on Twitter just being like, why didn't you use this app? Or why didn't you go on this random website? And like, we went into this, I wanted to see what the experience would be like if I just bought this car. I didn't really know anything about EVs, and I just like put in my destination and let it do the rest.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up like kind of wrecking us, because we didn't go into the filters the first day and put like prefer fast charging or anything like that. We just kind of like went. And yeah, it's like you would get to a trickle charger, and I have this photo that I'll have Adam put on the screen where like, and Brandon and I at like 11 p.m. ended up at this truck stop in the middle of nowhere. We almost stayed at this random motel in this creepy area in the middle of nowhere. We had no idea where we were. And I plugged in because the car was like, oh, there's a charger here. You're basically out of range. There's a charger here. Please plug in. And it was like a trickle charger. So I plugged in and I got a notification on my watch, and it was like 2,900 minutes until 16% charge. And I was like, holy smokes.
That's and that's like kind of brutal. The fact that you can go through the filters and that you did do that for the second day made a pretty big difference, I think.
Yeah, although to be honest, we mostly just used the Electrify America app on our phones because the second, like, the thing is, there's like 19 or 20 different charging networks, but Electrify America is useful because at every single Electrify America charger, there are at least 4, right? The biggest problem we ran into, and actually the reason why we had so many issues, was we would stop at fast chargers with like 30% left, but so many of these chargers only have one hose, like one thing to plug into.
Oh, one stall, one charger.
One stall, one charger.
Okay.
Right? Whereas like every Tesla charger has like at least like 6 minimum. And Electrify America, which is owned by Volkswagen Group, actually has 4 minimum, right? And so the second day we figured like, okay, the chances of all 4 of them being out are much lower. And we did cut it close yesterday on our last charge because 3 of the 4 were out. But the biggest issue we were into yesterday was that like all of the fast chargers we would route to, there was one. Like the first day, that was the Evolve New York one. There were like 4 to 6, but they were just all down because they were like switching to some other thing. I don't even know what that means. But yeah, most of the fast chargers, it would be like you'd pull into a truck stop somewhere and there would be literally one.
Yeah, and not ideal.
Yeah, and like more than half the time they were broken.
Yeah.
And I remember I called the number on the thing because someone on Twitter had say like, oh, just call it. They can reset it for you. I called the number and she's like, oh yeah, that was reported being broken like a few days ago. A service technician should be coming out at some point. And it's like, you
in the next week.
Do this. So this is the problem, is like it's so decentralized, right? Like there's obviously there's good things to be said about fragmentation sometimes because it can cause one company to not have too much power. But when it's so decentralized like this and there's no like universal like hub or server that says, hey, these are out of order, send that to the Ford app, and the app says you can't use this. Yeah, there's nothing like that. And if you pull into a fast charge and you have 30 miles remaining, what are you supposed to do? The closest thing you can get to is either nothing, Vermont, or a trickle charger that will take 2,900 minutes to get to 16%. So
yeah, it's very important with an electric car for that sort of thing to work. And you also think about in the future when there's going to be way more electric cars, having a station that it's guiding you to that has one charger where you don't know if it's being used or not is going to become a problem.
Even if it works. And it's so like, sorry, I will stop talking in a sec. But the last charger that we went to yesterday, the last day, it was an Electrify America because we hit only Electrify America chargers on the way home just because we wanted to play it safe.
Okay.
And on the Electrify America app, it said 1 of 4 available. And I was like, okay, well, and this is like before we left our last charging location, so it was still going to be like 200 miles till we got there. So I was like, oh, well, like 3 out of 4 of them are being used. By the time we get there, I'm sure there will still be 1 available. We got there. That didn't mean they were being used. It meant they were broken. So 1 was not broken. And it's just like, if you have more than 1 electric car in a 200-mile radius, you're going to have to wait for the person before you to finish, and then you're going to have to wait the 30 to 45 minutes for your car to charge. Yeah. And like, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And Electrify America is the best of all of these services.
The best available. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I want to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about both the charging and refueling experience, but also how it combined with the human refueling experience. So we'll take a break and we'll come back to that. This episode of Waveform is brought to you by Wondrium. So there's a really good chance that if you're a fan of what we do here, that you'd be very excited about Wondrium. That's WONDRIUM. And you may want to write that down because it's a new streaming service delivering one mind-blowing moment after another right now. So do you remember the Great Courses Plus, the amazing streaming service loaded with online courses? Okay, that's Wondrium. It's the same service, only with more to dig into. So Wondrium has thousands of hours of documentaries, tutorials, travelogues, and a whole lot more. Where my science nerds at, Wondrium has a class for you called Mind-Blowing Science, and it's exactly what it sounds like. So it dives into everything from dinosaurs to aliens to monster black holes, and it's got about 4 incredible facts every minute. So I've been on a little trivia kick lately, so I'm trying to brush up on everything science. Sounds good to you? If so, use our special URL to get a free month of unlimited access at wondrium.com/waveform. So that's WONDRIUM.com/waveform. Again, wondrium.com/waveform. Sign up today. So this episode of Waveform is brought to you by the Halo Dog Collar. So if you've been a part of the MKBHD community for a while, then you've already known about our favorite team member, Mac. He runs the show. He doesn't have the best battery life, I've noticed, but he does come with an amazing colorway and has the cutest little dual monochrome sensors up front. Good looks, Mac. I'm obviously talking about our studio guard, Mac, here.
Don't look so happy, Matt. And the top priority for our little dog guardians is to make sure our pals are safe, happy, and secure, and that's why we use the Halo dog collar.
So Halo is an all-inclusive system that trains, tracks, and protects your dog all by way of the collar. So you get a little more freedom for the dog and a little more peace of mind for you. All you do is set up Halo Fence either through the app or by walking the perimeter with the collar. And its GPS works without cell or Wi-Fi, so you can create new fences anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, it's like really easy to set up. The first time that I used it, we actually just moved into a new house, and I just had to take the collar, walk around the perimeter, and I just set up a quick and easy fence. So now whenever I have to go do the loads of yard work that I just inherited from buying a new house, Matt can run around. He really likes to when I go up on the roof to change the gutters, he runs around the house and looks for me and kind of freaks out. But so it makes it a lot easier for me to know he's safe out there.
It's pretty great. So if you still have questions, you can check out a short video clip at shophalocollar.com/waveform to see it in action. And of course, you can take advantage of this special limited time introductory offer today. So save 20% on your Halo collar by going to shophalocollar.com/waveform. That's shophalocollar.com/waveform for 20% off.
Now our mics are going to be covered in hair. Welcome back. I think we left off with David telling us about getting to a charger that only had one left, which is kind of terrifying. I think we can all agree on that. I think it's something that I'm always interested with in EVs, though, is just number of stalls. Because this is, as the gas car, when we were driving, we stopped at gas stations. I don't think we ever went under half a tank because we almost played it similarly to how you guys did, where we tried to make every break as efficient as possible, where we have a bathroom break. Let's just fill up while we're here. I don't think any break we had ever took longer than 10 minutes. Some were just for food. I think we had 2 stops that were only for food and we didn't fill up because we had gone to the bathroom recently enough where we were pretty solid, but we never went under half a tank of gas. There were gas stations though where when we pulled in, no pumps were available. And gas station, they've got 8 to 10 pumps, but waiting for that still means you're only waiting for some 2 to 3 people to finish, and then you're in there and out of there in less than 5 or 10 minutes. EV charging is, which I think in this trip we were in a situation where there are less chargers. I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I just had this thought of it would be really interesting to do this trip again in places where EVs are super, super popular and you're getting to potentially the point where you're pulling up to a charger that's full. Because we've all seen those videos of
NorCal
lines, right? Yeah,
California.
Basically just California.
Yeah.
But not to get too off track, I just had that thought, we never spent more than 10 minutes. And even though we would go to places where there's a line for the bathroom, a line for the gas pumps, a line for food, we went to the slowest Wendy's ever because they were short-staffed, and still nothing we ever did took longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think the goal of electric chargers should be to match the current gas car experience, which would be 2 things. 1, speed of charging has to get way faster to match the time. And 2, the amount of them that there are in the country has to be way more. Because I feel like with your gas car trip, you can actually just go straight to your waypoints and your food destinations and not even think about where you're going to charge, because you can charge at any point or fuel at any point that you need to. But with the electric cars, it was a little different. And even in the Tesla, I found it where you are planning around your chargers.
Yeah.
And I think around this 1,000-mile trip, we kind of hit every type of charger as far as things that you can do at that charging stop. Typically, you want something to eat or somewhere to use a bathroom, something like that. So we got up to Lake Placid. That one was a top of a mountain grocery store, and that was pretty much it. So I think, at that grocery store, we got snacks and donuts or whatever, and that was fine. I think we stopped at another one that was a mall, and we wanted to eat. So with that stop, we went into the mall and found the food court in the middle of the mall and ate at a Wendy's there, and then came back all the way out the mall to the parking lot because it was just on the mall parking lot. We had another one that was at a hotel. And it was really interesting because we weren't about to go in this hotel because we didn't have a reservation or anything, but I imagine there wouldn't have been much to do. That was an 8-minute stop.
Okay.
We didn't really do much there.
But like if you were looking for food there wasn't really
There wasn't really anything. We would have had to go somewhere else.
That's actually surprising.
There was another one that was in a strip mall with tons of food. We happened to pick one of the like 8 options and had a bite there. So we kind of had every version of it, but it was when we were deciding to be efficient, we weren't driving to food or driving to the waypoint and then happened to have a charger nearby. It was look on the map. We're going to Scranton. Where's the charger near Scranton? We're going there first.
Yeah. Then
we will figure out what to do.
Yeah, there is on the Tesla website, if you look it up on your phone, you can see what food's around there. But even with that knowledge, you're pretty at the mercy of what, because generally you're planning that trip already. Like that's your option. That's what you get.
Yep.
I will say, I think you benefited on the Lake Placid one on getting food there because we made the mistake of let's get going. We're pretty close. We're not going to grab food here because we're not that hungry. And then the distance between Lake Placid and like close to Niagara, there was nothing. So all of us were just like, we played that like bad game of waiting for like to try and get something better to eat. And there was absolutely nothing. So we were starving. We ate at like a gas station. Or no, we found a really nice cafe that was nice, but it took a while, and it's kind of nice to get forced into planning to eat and whatever. But other than that, it was nice that we could wait, find something, hop off the road, grab something to eat, hop back on the road in a couple minutes.
Yeah. Part of the reason we did 1,000 miles, by the way, was just because that's obviously way more than twice the range of both electric cars. It was just so we would have to definitely stop multiple times for various things, just sort of getting more variables involved there. I feel like we had a good variety of different stops. I don't know. It was the Electrify America charger. Where would that usually be?
Okay, so like on the first day when we were just doing whatever chargers the Ford app told us to stop at, it was pretty random. Like everything but Electrify America is sort of like in a forest, and there's sort of a little convenience mart. Or just in very random locations. Like we stopped in this like very cute town where we ended up getting sandwiches. But it was just like one EV charger in some random lot down by the lake. And it was just really random. All the Electrify America chargers definitely play more like Tesla does. Like the reason there was an Electrify America charger near the Wawa was because that's also a Walmart parking lot, and they have a relationship with Walmart.
Right.
But they put a lot in the Walmart parking lots. We stopped at one that was in a outlet mall. So that was like kind of crummy for the food's sake, because like all we really wanted was like there was basically no food there. There was like a froyo shop, and we wanted coffee, but there was actually no coffee in an entire like outlet mall, which is surprising, but
impressive.
Anyway, definitely not quite as good, but I feel like the Electrify Americas are a little bit better, and at least you could like go into Walmart and maybe pick something up there if you needed to. It's like not enjoyable necessarily.
Walmart has food, technically.
Exactly, they have food.
Okay.
So
yeah. No, I feel like the Tesla, two things. One, there are destination chargers on the Tesla map, but they're all gray. So if you look for a charger, by default, it's going to show you all of the superchargers, which are all fast. Usually, most of them are V2s, some are V3s, so that'll be 150 kilowatts or 250. If you want to, you can tap on the gray ones, and it'll show you some of those like random charge point chargers or like single chargers in a parking lot of a bagel shop or whatever. It's like you probably don't intentionally want to go to one of those, but if you are in a pinch, they're on the map and you can find one that's nearby. But also, I remember on the way to Lake Placid, there was we had a moment where we could choose about an hour short to stop at the last supercharger for a while. And I looked on the map and I saw a bunch of mountains, and I was like, oh, that could be a problem, but you know what? We're an hour away and we've got barely enough range. We're doing this. We're going. We're going all the way up to Lake Placid on one charge. And it was kind of just like, once we got past that last charger, we were fully committed. There was nothing else around. There were no destination chargers. We were going through a forest. It was like sheetrock walls to like rivers and like single lane roads up the side of a mountain. And one of the questions you usually get is, okay, well, what do you do if you run out in an electric car? Like if you're in a gas car, you can get towed, obviously, but also like if you get someone to bring you a can of gas, you can pour it in the car and actually just keep going.
Yeah, battery doesn't work that way.
Not quite the same. A lot of people keep bringing up like a generator. Like that's not very efficient.
Yeah.
You could, in theory, get a mile or two out of a generator, but that's a big generator that runs on gas.
People really bring that up?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, because that's like the
sell
only,
morons.
it's the only thing that kind of works in your head of like, okay, portable fuel.
Yeah.
If you're in a gas car, portable fuel is just a can of gas. If you're in an electric car, what's the answer?
The theory there
A
all
battery?
checks out, but it honestly makes no sense.
It
a tow
doesn't-
makes 1,000 more.
It would be nice if there were some sort of battery you could plug into your car just to get extra range, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So yes, you would have to get towed, and I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I've never gotten to that point. I'm jinxing it, but I've been down to 1 mile many times.
Yeah.
Also, we met somebody who worked for Tesla, and this is not the first Tesla employee who has told me that there is a small reserve underneath 0 miles. Probably don't want to go there all the time. It's probably bad for your battery, but multiple people have told me numbers between 10 and 25 miles of extra range.
That's pretty
if you
decent.
are absolutely in a bind and you've run out and have nothing around you.
That's handy to have.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. But I got to 1 mile and the car was fine. So
Okay.
that existed.
Maybe it hangs on that 1 mile for like quite a while.
It turned to 1 mile like about a mile from the charger. I think we have footage of us getting up. I think Hayato checks in every couple minutes where it's like, oh, nice. We've got 13 miles left on the ride and 13 miles left on the car battery.
Lordy.
Great. Oh, look, we've got 5 miles left on the car going up a hill and we're 6 miles away from the charger. Oh, great. And then we got to like 1 mile left and it happened to be like we get to a downhill. So there's a little bit of regen. I go nice and slow. I get all the battery back.
Yeah.
Go back up the hill and it was just perfect.
Yeah.
So
Dang.
yeah, it happened to work out. I have our total deltas at roughly an hour and a half for the Tesla behind the gas car. And then if we include all of the adventures of Vermont and not having a charger available, the Mach-E on this particular trip was about 5 hours behind, 5 to 5.5 hours behind.
Yeah, I mean, it's only because of that first
all day one.
situation.
Yes.
If we only count the second day, we were actually only like 20 minutes
Yeah, it was like
behind you
20
guys.
minutes. It was really close.
And Brandon and I made a sort of inefficient coffee shop stop once.
Yeah.
Which
So this-
probably took about 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you isolate
Pretty
the
even.
second day.
Yeah.
So the second day, we all left from Niagara Falls somewhere around 11 in the morning, and the Tesla had about 70 miles on it. The gas car had some bazillion miles. How many did
We
you?
had a half a tank. It was like 450. Or no, maybe we had more. We had like 450 miles
That's
to start.
a lot. And you had somewhere around 180, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
184 or something like that.
So we had to make a pretty early stop because we were already at 70, and we stopped at Cheektowaga, which had a great level 3 charger. In 15 minutes, we went from 40 to 198 miles, so it was quick. But that last leg was about 450 miles that day, and we all arrived within about an hour of each other.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
The first
So-
leg. Mach-E came in before Tesla, correct? Probably. Oh, sorry. You're
first-
saying
second
first
day.
stop.
the second day. Okay, yeah. But
Yeah.
if we go to first stop, Ithaca, I think you beat them by
We did by like
20
15
minutes?
20
Yeah.
minutes. Theoretically, before first stop, it should not matter because we should all be traveling at 75 miles per hour and leaving at the exact same time.
Yeah, there was charging
we-
differences. I guess it was you were starting at different ranges though. Also,
Yeah.
so it was a
We
little-
started with low battery
Right.
immediately.
They
went and
charged right before they went to do the clock photo. We did not. We charged after the clock photo.
Did you charge once before the clock?
No, we went straight there.
I thought you did because we were neck and neck with you guys, and then there was a turn at one point. Because that was the only time we were together, and you guys stopped to charge. I think
Oh,
I think they
Maybe.
charged twice before Ithaca. You charged
I think
once.
total on the
That's what
second
happened.
day we only charged twice. On the
Yeah,
second
we
day.
charged twice before Ithaca. Once at Cheektowaga because we started with low battery, and then once basically in Ithaca.
Yeah.
So that's but then we had one more stop just to get home.
Like under ideal conditions, if you only go to Electrify Americas and they're available, which luckily this one was, it is pretty much almost 1-to-1 with Tesla. Like the charging rate of most Electrify Americas are either 150 or 350, which the 350, like Tesla doesn't even offer yet, but also there are no electric cars that offer anything near that yet.
Yeah.
275 is the fastest charging car on the market. And it's the Taycan.
Mm-hmm.
So like the fact that it charges at the speed of a V2 Tesla is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Like, but it's just the volume. And the thing that kept ringing in my head yesterday was, you build it and they will come, but they haven't really built the charging infrastructure yet. But there's this huge push to build electric cars. And weirdly, it's like there's not a lot of car manufacturers that are really heavily investing in the charging network. They're kind of taking the like, it's not really our problem approach. Even Volkswagen like only made Electrify America because they had to. The US government forced them to make their own charging network because of the emissions scandal.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny that like they were forced to, and then now it's the best network that is non-Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like there's all these random charging companies that are sort of trying to get a piece of the pie. And like, yes, electric car companies are investing in these other companies, but they're not. I feel like they need to do more. They really need to do more. And also putting a single charger in a location and being like, we service this area is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
Yeah, it's tough. I almost kind of framed this at the beginning of like, if I were to put my parents in this car and say,
Yeah.
drive to this place 1,000
Exactly
miles
what
away.
I was thinking. Yeah.
How would it go for them?
Yeah.
And obviously the gas car, they'd be fine. They drive a gas car. If we put them in the Tesla, I think they would have no problem being very conservative and just stopping at like every supercharger along the way and just being safe with battery. And I wonder if they had decided to just pick whatever route the Mach-E laid out for them, how it would have gone.
Yeah.
But a lot of parallels keep coming up in my mind between like almost like iOS and Android. I'm trying to like crystallize this more in my head probably by the time I make this video, but like Tesla controlling the whole stack, which is they build the superchargers for Teslas.
Yeah.
They have the length of the cable perfectly to match up with where the charge port is on every car they make. And like obviously it's all thermally optimized and it's online and it talks to the cars and it bills you later. Like it's very streamlined. The fact that that works so well seems like an impossible target for another company that isn't building their own.
Yeah.
And you can get close, and there's the Pixel of the experience, which is maybe a Volkswagen-owned car on Electrify America only, maybe a Taycan. And here's a hot take. There is a route somewhere. There is a world and a route that you can take where the Mach-E wins. Probably beats the Tesla, maybe even ties the gas car.
Yeah.
Because if you follow Electrify America's 350 watt maximum chargers, and even I would say the Plaid Model S with those big wheels, which has 350 miles on the dash, doesn't quite get 300 miles. And the 305 mile Mach-E would probably get 305 miles.
Yeah.
So if you take off from the same place and you hit Electrify America's fast chargers, there's a world where it wins.
Yeah.
And you only hit 150s in the Tesla. And I think that's the best case like you could possibly find for it. But if you're giving the car to my parents and saying, go to Saskatchewan, like it's not going to be the same.
And this
experience.
it is extremely like iOS versus Android actually, because CCS, which is the one that everything's sort of converging to, is a lot like USB-C. It's like it offers all of these things and most cars are starting to use it. And whereas Tesla, it's like they're Lightning, they're in a lot of places, and like they offer a Lightning to USB-C connector.
Right.
But actually the USB-C CCS offers like more things. It can go up to 350 watts, right?
It's kind of like how
there's some benefits.
If you get the right cable, you can get the fastest Thunderbolt 3 speeds, but there's a lot of cables that look like it that don't get Thunderbolt 3 speeds. And you pull up to the wrong charger and get slow speeds.
Well, you can go up to 350. Tesla doesn't even offer that.
Right. At this point, their fastest charging is 250, which is the newest Model S and X.
Taycan's better than that.
Just a little bit, yeah. So there's going to be USB-C phones out there that charge faster than the iPhone, but are they ubiquitous and work every time like Lightning?
Right.
Interesting.
And when your friends ask you at a party if you have a charging cable and you hand them the USB-C cable and they say, "Oh no, I have an iPhone."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Maybe I need to draw that comparison in the video. I like that.
Yeah.
There's one other thing in charging that I thought was really interesting that I would like. I feel like we need to do the math on for the final video, but it's the like charging curve that we found out between the Mach-E and
I think that's going to be totally dependent on the car.
Well, yeah, but if we just compare to Mach-E right now, what we found was it goes full blast right until 80% and then just tanks.
So it's not right until 80%. I noticed yesterday the last Electrify America charger we used actually showed the kilowatts that it was outputting.
Yeah.
And when we first plugged in at 30, it was actually going at 157, which was weird to me because I can only take 150. I think maybe it was accounting for heat loss or something. But it was outputting 157. But then once we got to 60, it actually dropped to like 87. So it dropped fairly significantly. There's a curve.
Same thing in probably all of these cars, and this is the same with smartphones. You get peak charging briefly. Yeah. Like if you're rated on your phone to charge at 80 watts or something crazy, it doesn't charge at 80 watts from 0 to 100. You go ramp up to your peak charging, and you'll get peak charging from like 10 to 30%, and then it'll slowly, you probably could find a graph of this, it'll slowly slow down all the way to 100%. Then you have this weird thing where after 80% on the mach-e, it like capped you at 10 kilowatts.
10 kilowatts.
Which
and
is
we
like,
can see it on this graph here.
Which is very slow.
Really slow.
It's weird. I'm not sure why functionally it would decide to do that other than like protecting you from touching 100%. But if you're at a fast charger, you want to charge up fast.
Like
so
I know that most cars like will start sort of trickle charging after around 80.
Tesla
but
goes
it's not
pretty hard.
But it's not that low, right?
I mean, it goes to under 50 after 80%.
Yeah, but 10 kilowatts is so slow.
Yeah.
For 20%.
It seems pretty obvious that any charger outside of your house, they don't want you there to 100% either.
Right.
Like that you're just taking up more spots. You're generally not charging up to that, and
But if you charge me up faster, I'll leave faster.
This is almost like a right to repair thing, because it's like we're forcing you to not hurt your battery by only charging to 80% ever. Even though you could charge to 100%,
yeah,
we really want you to only go to 80.
Also, every car treats it a little differently. The Taycan, I'm trying to remember the specifics. With the Tesla, you can slide a slider right to 100%, and it'll charge the car to 100. And it'll warn you, hey, don't do this every time. We don't want you to degrade your battery life quickly.
Yeah.
But if you go down to 80%, that's your typical everyday state of charge. Leave the garage with 80%. And that's like a safe way of doing it. The Mach-E, you also have that control. But I believe the Taycan has a bit of extra battery that it doesn't charge every time. So if you charge to 100% on the Taycan, you're actually going to keep hitting that 100% every single day. And for the life of the car, it will feel like it doesn't degrade because there's extra battery above it that it's preserving for you.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it takes that like out of the equation for the Taycan owner. They believe they're charging to 100% every time, and they get the same experience every time.
That's kind of smart, to be honest.
Feels like a gas car. Like I fill my tank every day, and I don't have to worry about the tank shrinking or something weird.
The thing stops when it stops.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's different ways different companies have attacked that, and I'd be curious if there's like a written reason why it decides 80% it's going to slow charge instead of stopping. I don't understand that.
I assume it's some sort of like battery chemistry thing that we did not go to school for. So
I might have to talk to someone from Ford. I'm sure they're raging at the keyboard right now trying to tell us exactly what it is. But I am very aware that I can charge to 100% on the Tesla as many or as few times as I want to, and that's in my control. And if you're an enthusiast, you'll probably appreciate that more. So there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to know. I bet there's a world where we can plan an exact trip where the Mach-E wins. Like a 500...
I'm sure there's multiple ones.
A 500-mile trip
where it is,
where there's only 150 kilowatt superchargers for the Tesla.
Yeah.
And there is, all Electrify America for the Mach-E, and you just ride it out, and it's just...
it's just so hard that Teslas can use so many non-Tesla chargers too and adapt to them. And obviously, I don't think they can use all of them. I think you had mentioned they possibly can't use Electrify America. That's something we have to look into a little bit more. And that would make sense for Volkswagen to do that. But when you can have the Tesla network, which is so big already, and yes, technically it is not the same size as the entire non-Tesla network, but also it's kind of bigger because you can adapt to a lot of those, right? And every non-Tesla car company CEO is like, our network is actually bigger, and it's not really. And then also, if you only have one at your station and there's a 50% chance of them being broken, the first Electrify America charger we went to yesterday, the first one we plugged into was broken. Luckily, there were 3 other chargers we could plug into. The second one worked. Second one we went to, 3 of them are broken. It's none of these are have really good uptime. And Electrify America likes to say that they have 97% uptime or something. And clearly that's not true from our referential data.
It could be true, but even 97% is probably not enough.
Yeah.
Like I can see on the map when a Tesla supercharger is down, and maybe it's down for a day, but like if you say in an entire year there is 1,000 chargers and 3% of them, that's 30 of them, are down for the entire year, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
You want 99% plus, I hope.
Yeah. Even if we're just talking about the mach-e's trip on the first day, if let's say everything was like just the worst coincidence possible, anybody who is new to EV and had that experience in a new EV car would regret their decision and be probably never buy an EV again. And that's just not a place we can be right now if we're trying to fully adapt to EV cars because of emissions. Like that's not acceptable at all. And I think that you're not only ruining the experience for one person who will stick with gas for the rest of their life, all of the people that they talk to that might be thinking of that decision is possibly ruining that.
That's something we were talking about earlier in the studio is just like the power of recommendations from your friends and family for so many people outweighs doing your own research on the internet. So many people will say like, oh, I know this says that it's the best on the internet, but my friend told me that it's not great. Yeah. And it's like, that is so powerful.
And it's something that they talk to us about with the Lightning, which is that pickup trucks right now are probably the most resistant to changing to EV.
Which is hilarious considering they benefit the most from it, but...
that's a whole other argument. But like, if we're talking about pickup trucks coming in, if pickup truck drivers were to have that experience that they just had with Mach-E, it would be hugely detrimental to just not just Ford and the F-150, but I think to pickups in general, because this is going to be one of the first really big ones we see. And I think they have a year to, 6 months-ish, maybe 6 months to a year to really figure this out before the F-150 launch, or else I think it could be really, really bad for just EVs
and this
in
is,
general.
It's the hardest thing, right? Like I want to note again, like the Mach-E is like a pretty decent car, actually. Like a lot of its parts are really nice. The interior is pretty nice. It was pretty nice to drive. Blue Cruise, not Blues Cruise.
I was about to ask about that.
Blues Cruise. We can talk about that a little bit more in a sec too. But like, it's a pretty decent car. And if you are not going on a road trip, if you're plugging in every night and you only go within 200 miles, it's
a lot of these cars
like
never
most
have
people
to do
could
that,
use this every day and they would not have any problems.
Yeah, a lot of people take one road trip once in a while. It's a very small consideration and you plan very heavily around it. So most people aren't buying the car based on the road trip.
Yeah.
But also I just want to mention there's a couple variables for each car that could affect, obviously we're on different roads at different times, different amounts of traffic, things like that. The wheels and tires I wanted to mention because people always want to bring this up. The 21-inch wheels with the sport tires on the Model S Plaid are rated for 350 miles.
Yeah.
The 19-inch wheels would have aero caps, and it would be rated at 390 miles. Yeah. That's a fun fact. There's also a long-range Model S that gets 402, something like that. Yeah. So that exists. We also could have used a longer range gas car, and they probably would have never
killed the mileage.
Yeah, when you guys left and it was like over 400 miles of range, I was like,
what I was surprised at, I set a trip for the whole thing, and it just like counts your range and your miles per gallon, and that thing's rated. It was 23 city, 28 highway. I think we were averaging like 32, 33 miles per gallon. Nice. Now, most of our driving was all highway. Like for all of us, there was very few back roads,
which was very handy nice. for the Blue Cruise as well.
Yeah, it was great to just like go on and
although
cruise,
we had a lot of
and we were all
because Vermont.
Vermont. Oh yeah, you did.
And also
our back roads were basically like highways though. I mean, like not a lot of cars. There was a point where we didn't see a car behind us for probably like an hour.
Yeah,
I also had like 200 miles in a row of a single lane road.
Yeah,
it was great.
That was between Placid and Niagara. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. So we'll land on this last point, which is like quality of life.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, once in a while, let's say you do go on a road trip. How comfortable is the car? Like we were talking about, Hayato was like, I've never done 1,000 miles in a car like this, but these seats are great and I feel fine after 1,000 miles, which is like pretty great. I feel like the fatigue factor of like going 1,000 miles and having to think for 1,000 straight miles about the steering wheel is reduced by having some sort of adaptive cruise control experience.
Yep.
I've seen some videos about Blue Cruise.
Yeah.
I've never tried it, so
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I'm going to watch your footage later, but how did that go with the mach-e?
Yeah. So, so for those who don't know, Ford has kind of a autonomous driving. It's not autonomous drive. People get mad at us all the time for saying this.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like a cruise control thing called Blue Cruise. And what you told me when I told you about it yesterday was that it's very similar to early Autopilot.
Yes.
And so basically, you can turn it on, and it'll drive for you, and you can set a speed. There were so many weird quirks about it though, because like you can set a max speed, but then randomly later, like you'll just be coasting, and we would set it at 75 because that was the max speed we agreed we would all go. Randomly, it would just kick up to like 90.
Yeah.
And every single time it would kick up, it was always 20 miles over the speed limit. And I was like, why is it doing like? Is this legal?
Initiating ticket mode.
Yeah, it was very weird, and it would just do it without asking you, and it was so confusing. And then they have like these weird animations to show like when it's in full Blue Cruise mode, when it's in like you don't have to use the pedal but you still need to steer, that kind of mode. And it you had told me that like you saw a video or something where anytime it would start to go around a curve, it would just freak out.
It would just disengage.
This was better than that. It could go around curves, but it was much worse at going around the curves because it would not turn nearly enough, and it would the wheel would almost always touch like the bumps on the road that tries to like keep you off
The
of
rumble
the edge,
strips,
the
yeah.
rumble strips, or like the yellow strip or whatever it was. It would almost always touch that, and multiple times when it was like in full Blue Cruise mode, I'd have my hands on the wheel, and it would kind of go around the turn, but it would not take it tight enough, nearly tight enough. So it would kind of do this thing where it would start to turn, but then it would recognize that it didn't do it nearly tight enough, and then it would like jar to the right. And like it just kept doing this, and it got really uncomfortable a couple times where we would go on those rumble strips and it would just start going, or there'd be like, we were going super far across like America, so there's just tons of trucks everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And there would be these trucks in the lane next to us, and we'd get like really close to that truck, and I'd just be like, it didn't feel super comfortable to use.
Yeah.
But for the instances where we would just be going pretty much straight, maybe a few curves for like an hour, it was really nice. Like your brain doesn't have to be 100% on. It has to be like 80% on.
So I have a couple comparisons with Autopilot that I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
Number one is, early versions of Autopilot would sort of have this weird like ping pong behavior. They'd bounce back and forth between the side lanes, which is sort of sounds like what you're describing, especially in a turn.
Yeah.
And the newest version on this car is very, very smooth, which is nice.
Yeah.
Even sometimes they would approach a curve and slowly slow down a little bit to make that curve a little gentler and then speed back up to speed. So I like that. But there is also a certain length of time where it will ask you to just like touch the wheel or just like apply a light force to the yoke in this case, just to make sure you're still paying attention.
Yeah.
You told me yours was very different of an experience because mine will start like flashing on the dashboard and then it'll like beep at you.
Yeah.
And if you actually go enough time where the car is in autopilot and you don't engage and you aren't paying attention, it will actually disable auto steer until you put the car in park and then it'll be enabled for your next drive.
Yeah.
How did the mach-e handle that?
Okay, so we were making this joke yesterday because I was sort of telling you about this. It doesn't like to make noise. This car doesn't like to make noises, and I don't really know why.
Yeah.
From using the stock to like put your turn signals on, you can barely hear the turn signal at all. Like I didn't know it was on a lot of the time, especially if we were like playing music or just talking, and that was uncomfortable. But as far as the Blue Cruise thing goes, there's a little camera that is like watching you to make sure that you are paying attention to the road.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was like, had Blue Cruise, we were going on a like quite straight away, and I would like look over to the screen to like change the song or try to reroute us or something. It's like, if you got a giant tablet screen, you have to use it, right? So it's not like you're going to be paying 100% attention to the road if you have to use the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be like, pay attention. But instead of making a noise, it would just brake check us.
What?
We're just like, and this happened over and over again.
This is so weird to me.
In order to like snap your attention back to the little dash and also the road, it would literally just like do a quick brake.
That is so weird.
But it wouldn't play any noises, and it was
just beep at them.
Yeah.
Or like play a beep in the speaker.
Yeah.
It
And, like,
brake checks you.
It brake checks you, and I am wondering if like that's a failsafe in case it thinks you're falling asleep.
Yeah, it sounds like a jolt kind of thing. I'm wondering if brake check's the right term.
But
because brake check is like a full blown.
It would tap the brakes.
Tap the
It
brake.
would tap the brakes
better,
pretty
yeah.
hard, and then just keep going.
That to me is wild.
It was weird.
That's what it shows.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's some reason for it, and there's some engineers who have just studied this. But if you've seen videos on YouTube of like going a long time without, like, there's videos of people like falling asleep behind the wheel of a Tesla and it just keeps driving. Like, if you do that for more than a couple minutes, it'll pull you over and beep at you and make you wake up. It's not going to tap on the brakes. It's just going to get off the road because you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So that's weird to me that it shows that. But no. So the auto steer, it was helpful for me. Obviously, the Audis had.
It's just like a lane assist, but
lane
it does
assist.
like take just a little bit off your like mental fatigue to just
it's
like
relaxing.
kind of have it going
Yeah.
with cruise control. The two together are nice. Didn't you say you encountered your first overpass?
Yes.
Like kind of
I had-
like break.
Yeah, I had a very, very good autopilot experience. I don't autopilot very much, but this is like, I probably put in a couple 100 miles of autopilot, and near the very end of our trip in like perfectly reasonable weather, I've seen this example on the internet a few times, never experienced it. Approaching an overpass, which has a shadow on the road, it slammed on the brakes.
Oh, man.
Approaching this overpass with a pickup truck behind me, mind you. And luckily, even in autopilot, if you just hit the throttle, it'll just accelerate and stay on autopilot. And so I did that, but it apparently sometimes thinks that the shadow of the overpass on the road is a car and thought it was about to crash into the back of the car and slammed on the brakes.
Yeah.
Very odd to me.
Yeah.
Everything else about autopilot the entire trip was great.
Yeah.
It would change lanes for me. It would take the exit off of the highway and then tell me, hey, in 500 feet, take the wheel. You're going to have to drive. And that's fine. But that was one weird one. I've never experienced that. So
I do want to come back to the quality of life thing just overall.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of reasons that people like kind of rail on Tesla is because, especially in like a Model 3, for example, it's way more about the software experience. It's way more minimal. You know, we did that that other really, really fancy car. Forgetting
EQS.
the
The Rimac.
EQS.
Oh, the
EQS.
Yeah.
And like it's just all about luxury. And I felt like the Mach-E was actually a pretty good in between. Like I have a Model 3 and you know, it's very basic. The seats are basic. Everything's basic. And it's like, I've never really cared about that. After driving 1,000 miles in this car, like I was pretty surprised at how nice, like the seats are really comfortable. They're pretty wide. Just a lot of the like things in the car feel nicer overall.
all of our cars had wireless chargers, right?
Yeah, this also had a wireless charger, sort of in a similar situation to where the newer Teslas have it, like right in the front there.
Smart.
Only one instead of two. The second seat little area was just for your keys or whatever.
The Audis, actually, if I want to complain about something, the Audi's wireless charger was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
We didn't even use it because of how stupid it is. So in the center console, you know, like, and then it has the piece you flip up, which has your armrest. So there's two cup holders in front of that. When you flip the armrest up, that's where the wireless charger is. So you either are charging, if you have anything in your cups,
you have to put your phone
charging
away.
it under the armrest.
Yeah.
But also when it's there, you can't get to the space underneath it because it slides forward. So you either can have your phone over top of the cup holders, wireless charging, but now you can't use your cup holders and there's no other ones in the front. Or you slide it back and now when you lift the armrest up, your phone's there, wireless charging. You can't see it while you're driving or doing anything. Yeah. And also, it's covering all of the space underneath it. So I was like, to shove the receipts we were taking in there, I had to like pull my water bottle out, slide it forward, put the receipts in. Like it was, we didn't use it at all.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was just plugged in for Android Auto, so that's why I was charging the whole time. But
and this had Android Auto and it had Apple CarPlay. And that's
nice.
Another benefit because like especially with Android Auto, I love Android Auto because you can be like find me coffee shops along my route.
Yeah.
Whereas with like Tesla, you can't really do that.
Yeah.
So that was nice, and it had a USB-C and a USB-A outlet right in front of the wireless charger, which I really am annoyed at Tesla for getting rid of the USB-A chargers
it's all
in the car.
C ports now.
There's like one USB-A charger in the dash box, glove box.
Yeah,
that's mostly for dash cam, but you can charge other things in it. But it's like very annoying that there are no, like, for example, like the Apple Watch, the charger that it comes with is USB-A.
Yeah.
And so if
That's
I want
Apple's fault.
yeah, I know it's Apple's. Yeah, totally. I think everything should switch over to USB-C. But it's the exact same conversation we had about like removing things before, like the yoke, right?
Right.
Like you eventually want to remove the steering wheel. Instead, you make the steering wheel arguably worse before you remove it.
I will say, we haven't gotten to my full review yet, but I've hit the point where I don't miss the buttons anymore. It took me 2,200 miles before I really thought to myself, I've stopped missing the buttons.
Interesting.
Without looking.
The stalks, you mean?
The blinkers.
Oh, like physically missing them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you meant.
So you're used to it now?
I'm fully used to driving, not checking the wheel, check my mirror, I'm hitting the blinker without looking.
I would like you to mark down every time, because you know there's going to be like that situation you come to like once every 3 years. I want you to mark down every time in the future from when like one thing is just a little off and you did it wrong because of the yoke.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see how long that goes.
How long
what
that
that
keeps going?
situation is. It's going to be like I had to do a K-turn
and turn my headlights on and flash the headlights.
Yeah, something like weird like that. I just want to know like randomly when that happens.
Yeah, that's definitely still happening. But the just getting used to it part, 2,200 miles.
Okay, interesting.
I'm used to it.
All right, good to know.
So there you go.
And last thing I will say too is like the amount of people who just like, we would drive through little small towns, and the amount of people who would just like stare at our car.
Oh, interesting.
Was like, there would be what? And we had multiple people both at charging stations and like just getting coffee who were like, what car is that? And then we'd be like, it's a Mustang Mach-E. And they'd be like, there's a Mustang electric car? We had so many people asking about that. So like, I know there's a lot of people who just like don't want a Tesla because they just don't want to be part of the Tesla thing.
That's
totally.
interesting.
There's people who have Android phones because they don't want an iPhone. It's not about what's better about the Android phone, which there are many things that are better about Android phones.
That, yeah.
But there are many people who just don't want an iPhone, right?
It's fascinating.
There's people like that. And so the amount of people who would probably buy this Mustang Mach-E because they like the Ford brand and it's not Tesla, because a lot of people just don't like Tesla. That's a thing they got going for them too. But we turned so many heads with that car, and it's a pretty good looking car, especially from 45-degree angle.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic. I'll take anything but a
That'll
Tesla.
go for literally any company out there. I don't like this company, so I'm buying that company.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be a point where there will be people who like Teslas and won't buy something else, even though it might be better for them because they want Tesla instead.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's an even stronger.
Just right now, in terms of where we're at, there are people. Tesla is the number one right now, so people don't like it. The same reason, like exactly what you said.
Yeah,
people don't like Apple.
It's the contrarian thing.
Exactly,
it's like
the contrarian.
the underdog.
That's a psychology podcast topic. I think maybe you can. That would be fun to have you on a podcast like that to talk about tech fanboyism, but maybe that's our end for this episode.
Yeah, maybe
if we're at this point right now,
we'll talk about that another time. It's fun.
Yeah, the first day was pretty dang stressful, I will say. So
we're glad to have you here.
If you're doing a road, thank you.
Yeah, we're glad you.
I should have known from the beginning when I got placed in the Mach-E that it was going to be the most stressful.
Didn't you pick
car.
it?
We
debated it. We had two thoughts.
I'm willing to be in pain for the cause.
Well, our thoughts though were: do we put two people, because we picked the teams already? Was it two people who are you two both drive EVs? Our car and the gas car, none of us drive EVs.
Yeah.
So it's like, do we put people who are brand new into it or people who are somewhat?
It's beneficial that Brandon and I both already have Model 3s, because then we can compare the difference between a similarly priced car. Right.
We also thought you had the
Similarly priced
advantage of
EV.
just knowing about charging in general.
Yeah, that too.
We put it in there,
Which,
hopefully to help.
totally
them out.
cool. I'm glad I had Brandon with me. It was fun.
Sick.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're all back, and we're working on the full recap video, so you guys will get all the data. I'm trying to find the best way to like package all of this and explain all of it.
If you heard typing,
so
like
much.
this is the first time all the cars have like really sat down and talked. So I think Marques was taking notes at some point in there. Like we have 2 videos coming out that should be awesome. Studio behind the scenes, I can't wait for.
Yeah.
And then
you could just see Brandon and I's devolvedness into madness.
I can't wait to watch that. Yeah. But anyway, that's been it for Waveform this week. Of course, it's Techtember. Like we're in it. We're in it, guys. There's some phones around the corner. There's some stuff coming out. There's going to be a lot more videos coming up, so definitely stay tuned for that and subscribe if you haven't already. But that's been it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
So Waveform was produced by me, Adam Molina. We are partnered with the Vox Media Podcast Network, and our intro-outro music was created by Vane Sill.